The science of history has existed in Russia for 300 years, and for 300 years there has been discussion regarding the origin of the state that has been formed in the lands of Eastern Slavs. Furthermore, there is no accord regarding the origin of the Slavonic people. Some present-day Russian scientists are inclined to believe that the historical roots of the Slavs go nowhere, as they say. Failing to reach an agreement on the origin of the state, the scientists claim that the 9th decade of the 9th century saw the birth of the Kievan Rus, an early feudal monarchy which was ruled by the Rurik dynasty, even though the existence of Rurik, the founder of the dynasty, is still under discussion. The golden age of the state was the 11th century, when it was under the rule of Yaroslav the Wise. The central power started to decline under the rule of his descendants. Vladimir Monomach, the grandson of Yaroslav the Wise, slightly strengthened the state. However, during the rule of his son Mstislav, the Kievan Rus split into many states. The Slavic expansion is also closely related to the development of the Kievan Rus. In 862, Rostov, founded between the rivers of Volga and Oka on the lands of the Finno-Ugric tribe of Meria, was mentioned for the first time. Suzdal was mentioned in the 10th century, and at the end of the 10th century it saw the invasion of the Novgorod Sloveni and Krivichi. In 1108, Vladimir Monomach founded Vladimir upon Klyazma. He sent his son, Yuri Dolgoruki, to govern the Rostov-Suzdal province. The chronicle tells us that in 1147, Yuri Dolgoruki told Prince Sviatoslav of Chernigov, quote, "My brother, come and see me in Moscow," end quote. It was the first time that Moscow was mentioned. As early as the 12th century, the Baltic land became surrounded by Slavonic principalities, while at the beginning of the 13th century it neighbored on Poland and the Slavonic principalities of Volyn, Turów-Pinsk, Minsk, Polotsk, and Pskov. Slavic and Baltic encounters are mentioned in the Story of Ancient Years, written by Nestor. The Slavs raided against the Yotvingians in 986 and 1038. Against the Lithuanians in 1040 and 1044, against the Galindians in 1058, and again against the Yotvingians in 1112. The Balts started regular raids into Rus in the 12th century. At the beginning of the 13th century, the Lithuanians attacked in various directions. Volyn in 1240, Chernigov in 1220, Smolensk in 1225. A local chronicler claims that in 1225 a huge Lithuanian army raided the Novgorod lands, and that the dwellers of Novgorod had never seen so many warriors. At the beginning of the 13th century, Polotsk and Pskov lands were raided many times. In 1237, Mongol invaders overran Russia. In 1240, Batu Khan devastated Kiev, and the principalities of Rus became tributaries. The political center of Rus moved to the northwest, at first to Vladimir. Since the 3rd decade of the 14th century, with a small break in the middle of the 14th century, princes of Moscow were crowned as grand princes. In the 14th century, a big territory that formerly belonged to the Kievan Rus was taken over by the Grand Duchy of Lithuania. In 1404, Smolensk was incorporated into the Grand Duchy of Lithuania. The unification of Russian lands did take time. Dmitry of the Don, the Grand Prince of Moscow, defeated the Golden Horde at Kulikovo in 1380. A big blow has been dealt to the reign of the Golden Horde, and the role of Moscow in the unification of Russian lands increased. During the reign of the descendants of Dmitry of the Don, such as Vasily II the Blind and his son Ivan III, Rus was centralized and became the Russian state. In 1480, Russia no longer was a tributary of the Golden Horde. The double-headed eagle became the national emblem of Russia, and St. George its symbol. The process of incorporation of Slavic lands into Muscovy started. It was prompted by the common ethnic origin and religion. In 1478, the Republic of Novgorod was incorporated, while in 1485, the incorporation of Tver took place. In 1493, Ivan III started a war against the Grand Duchy of Lithuania. A treaty signed in 1494 recorded the first losses of the Grand Duchy of Lithuania in the east. It lost the Principality of Vyazma and a large territory in the upper Oka basin. According to the Treaty of 1503, Muscovy got Chernigov, Novgorod, Seversk, Starodub, and lands along the Oka River. In 1514, Smolensk was incorporated into Muscovy. The western borders of Muscovy now reached the Dnieper River. In 1547, Ivan IV, the grandson of Ivan III, was crowned as the Tsar of all Rus. Thus, the doctrine of the incorporation of originally Slavic lands was gradually replaced by the era of seizing non-Slavic lands. Ivan IV the Terrible defeated the Kazan and Astrakhan Khanates, occupied lands near Volga, and started pushing into Siberia. In order to gain lands on the Baltic Sea, he embroiled himself in a long and difficult Livonian war against the Grand Duchy of Lithuania. Not only he failed to gain any new land, but he also lost the land that he held. In 1582, he killed his son, and in 1584 he died himself. Fyodor Ivanovich, the last of the Ruriks, was of a poor health, and he died in 1598, so the reign of the Rurik dynasty came to an end. After the 15-year period of the so-called Time of Troubles, the reign of the Romanovs started in 1613. Alexei Mikhailovich Romanov engaged in a 13-year war between 1654 and 67 for Ukraine against the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth. In 1655, he invaded Vilnius and declared himself the Grand Duke of Lithuania. Vilnius remained occupied until 1661. In 1667, the Treaty of Andrusovo was concluded, whereby the left bank Ukraine was ceded to Russia. In 1696, Peter I was crowned as the Tsar of Russia. In 700, he started his greatest campaign to gain lands on the Baltic Sea. In 1721, the Treaty of Nystad ended the Northern War. Russia, ruled by Peter I, acquired the Baltic coast to the north from Riga and the lands of Estonia. In the same year, Russia was declared as an empire.
Rytų Europoje iškilo galinga Rusijos valstybė. Imperinės politikos laikėsi visi Petro I palikuonys.
A powerful Russian state emerged in Europe. The imperial policy was followed by all descendants of Peter I. Catherine II became the symbol of the successful policy of imperial Russia. At the age of 16, she married to the heir of the Russian throne.
1762 metais užgrobė sostą. 1768–1774
After her husband became Emperor Peter III, she staged a coup and seized the throne with the support of the Guards. The Russo-Turkish Wars of 1768–74 and 1787–91 were also successful. Russia annexed Crimea and the territory between the Dnieper and the Bug. Together with Austria and Prussia, Russia 3 times partitioned the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth. After the first partition of the Commonwealth, Russia gained Polotsk, Vitebsk and Mstislavli voivodeships, a part of Minsk voivodeship, and Latgalia.
Rusija atiteko Polotsko, Vitebsko, Mstislavlio vaivadijos, dalis Minsko vaivadijos ir Latgala.
In 1793, Russia annexed Kiev, Breslau, Podol and Minsk voivodeships, the eastern part of Vilnius voivodeship, the territory of Brest and the eastern part of Volyn. In 1795, Russia incorporated all Lithuanian lands except Sudovia, some Belarusian lands and Koronia.
Buvo prijungtos lietuviškos žemės, be Užnemunės, kai kurios baltarusiškos žemės ir Kuršas.
Alexander I learned the lessons of his grandmother Catherine II. In 1801, he overturned his father Paul I, who had reigned since 1796. In 1805 to 1807, he concluded alliances against Napoleon's France. However, he was forced to sign the peace treaty of Tilsit with Napoleon. In 1809, he successfully ended the war with Sweden, and in 1812 with Turkey. In 1801, he annexed Georgia and in 1809, Finland. In 1812, he occupied Bessarabia and in 1813, Azerbaijan. After the war with Napoleon of 1812, by the decision of the Congress of Vienna, Russia was given the Polish lands. Thus the Kingdom of Poland in the territory of the Russian Empire was established. The Lithuanian Sudovia was also given to Russia.
1855–1881 metais Rusija valdė žymiausias.
In 1855 to 81, Russia was ruled by Alexander II, the most notable reformer in the history of the empire. In 1861, he started the emancipation reform. Serfdom was abolished. However, some people thought the reforms to be too decisive. Others believed that they were not decisive enough. It was a perfect ground for radical ideas of socialism. 1903 saw the establishment of the Russian Social Democratic Labour Party, whose radical wing, the Bolsheviks, supported the idea of an immediate socialist revolution.
Kurios radikalusis sparnas, bolševikai, pasisakė už socialistinę revoliuciją nedelsiant.
A revolution occurred in Russia in 1905 to 1907. However, the monarchy survived. The Russian Empire fell in 1917 during the February Revolution. In the autumn of the same year, the Bolsheviks staged a coup d'état. This triggered a civil war which lasted for 5 years and claimed the lives of 20 million Russian people. The Bolsheviks executed Nicholas II, the last of the Romanovs, and his family in July 1918 in Yekaterinburg. In 1922, the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics was established. World War I and the Second Revolution of Russia provided the opportunity for the political forces of Lithuania to seek independence. On the 16th of February 1918, Lithuania regained its independence. Independent national states of Latvia and Estonia were also established. The 20s and 30s saw the growth of National Socialist and fascist ideas, which resulted in fascist regimes in Italy and Germany. The cult of Stalin, which developed in the Soviet Union in around 1927, and the gigantic machinery of violence resulted in big inconsistencies between democratic European states and authoritarian states of Italy, Germany, and the Soviet Union. A new division of Europe and of the world started. Germany annexed Austria and the regions of Sudets as well as Klaipėda. In 1940, with the approval of Germany, the Soviet Union occupied Lithuania. The Soviet Union and Germany started World War II. The map of Europe changed again. In 1944, the Soviet Union occupied Lithuania for a second time. The bloc of socialist countries was established. The Soviet Union gained the Baltic lands of East Prussia in the Sambian Peninsula in the East Baltic region. Now this territory is called the Kaliningrad province. In 1985, the then General Secretary of the Communist Party, Mikhail Gorbachev, started his reforms in the Soviet Union. In 1988, Lithuania saw the establishment of the Sąjūdis liberation movement. After 50 years of occupation, the independence of Lithuania was finally restored on the 11th of March 1990. Following the failed coup d'état in August 1991, the Soviet Union ceased to exist on the 8th of December of the same year. Russia chose democracy and free market. The Declaration of Independence of Russia was passed on the 12th of June 1990, and in a year, the first president of the Russian Federation, Boris Yeltsin, was elected.